friends, I think it's about time for us to go ahead and get started. First and foremost, thank you so much for joining us for our fourth installment of Magically Live, where today we'll be discussing PDFs within accessibility. Magically Live is a series of events that we're hosting in which we'll pick one accessibility topic each time and take a deep dive into it. My name is MagicA11y, and today I'm joined by two of Magic EdTech's accessibility professionals, Erin and Tarveen. Erin, would you like to go ahead and introduce yourself?
Sure. Hi, everyone. Thank you again for joining. I'm Erin Evans. I work here in the U.S. as an accessibility consultant, and I'm happy to be joined by my coworker, Tarveen. Tarveen?
Thank you, Erin. Hi, everyone. Good morning, good evening. Thank you so much for joining our Magically Live session. So today will be a very interesting session where we'll be talking about how we can ensure that digital documents are accessible to everyone regardless of their abilities. I myself head accessibility practice at MagicA11y. Thank you so much for joining.
All right, so just a bit of housekeeping before we begin. To start, we'll talk for about 25 minutes just about PDFs, and Erin and Tarveen will bless us with a little bit of their knowledge. And then we will go into a QA portion. So you can drop any questions that you have in the QA box and we'll address them all during that portion. And if for any reason that we can't address it during this session, we'll send it out in an email after the session has concluded. Closed captions are enabled, so to see them, you can select the CC button on your screen.
Awesome. So let's just, before we get started, let's kind of set the framework with this quote that we are sharing here on the screen that says, when you design for disability, you design for the future.
It's a very nice quote. All righty. And I think that we have a little mood-o-meter poll for everybody before we get started, just to kind of gauge how everyone's feeling.
So the poll says, what word best describes your mood right now? And you can choose one. The choices are excited, overwhelmed, caffeinated, and curious. Curious. Most of you showed up as curious. I appreciate those of you who are also here that are caffeinated. I could use some more coffee today, but we're gonna go with where we're at. You too, Tarveen? More tea?
We have a lot of Curious George from Curious George series, I think. Famous character to talk about, yeah.
Perfect.
Alrighty, so we'll just go over our agenda for today. So first we'll discuss the history of PDFs, then we'll talk a little bit about how PDFs are used, and then we'll go into how we can create accessible PDFs, and then we'll talk about alternative file formats and if they're right for you and your organization. And we have one more poll before we fully get started.
This poll is, what is the primary purpose of PDF accessibility? Again, one choice option, and your choices are to make PDF documents readable by people with disabilities, to improve the searchability of PDF documents, to increase the security of PDF documents, or to reduce the file size of PDF documents. And it is correct, most of you have said that the primary purpose is to make documents readable by people with disabilities, and that is very true, what we're going to talk through in our session today.
All right, so to kick us off, Erin, can you give us a little bit of history about PDFs?
Sure. So PDFs are short for portable document format, and they were introduced by Adobe back in 1993. They were originally developed to support professionals and business applications. And, back in the early 90s, there was the Apple versus Mac versus Linux versus this. So the goal was to have a universal file format that could be utilized on any system that was in the industry. And that was where PDFs started. A year later, Adobe introduced their free Acrobat Reader, which would enable anybody the opportunity to be able to read through those PDFs. So not just people that were in the professional or business applications. That then allowed for more use of the file format, and it also expanded where those files were being used. So since then, as we all know, PDFs are kind of everywhere, right? They're out there in the wild. They are used across industries in many different areas. We see them a lot in education. We see them in banking. We see them in medical. I mean, pretty much everywhere. And that's not a bad thing, but it's really important that as we know where all of these PDFs are, that we start to consider how they can be updated or used or changed in order to make them accessible so that anybody who needs to access them, whether it is to fill out a form for their doctor's office or complete a mortgage application or do a worksheet for their class, that they all have that opportunity through the accessible file format.
All right, thank you so much for that. Alrighty, so now I think we have some more polls for us to look at. I'm sorry, Tarveen, did you have anything to add to that history piece before we move on?
I think Erin covered it really well.
All right, beautiful. Okay, so now we have another poll that's going to pop up for you guys.
This poll says, what are the common accessibility issues found in PDF documents? Images that are missing alt text, links that are missing descriptive text, headings that are not properly structured, or all of the above. You can choose one. All of the above was the correct answer. As we'll talk about as we keep going through this conversation today, all of these are things that are common accessibility errors, and we'll talk through ways to address those. There is a second question on this poll. If we're able to put that up. Perfect, thank you. Tarveen, you want to read this one?
Sure. So the second question is that which PDF accessibility standard should be followed while creating PDF documents? Is it PDF UA ISO 14289? Is it PDF A ISO 19005? Is it PDF X ISO 15930? Or is it PDF WCAG 2.1 AA? And we'll be talking about this as well in the upcoming slides. So the correct answer is PDF UA ISO 14289. That's the right answer. And WCAG is really more related and is being covered under this, but we don't usually end up following WCAG 2.1 specifically for PDFs.
And we'll dive into that as we move forward.
Absolutely.
Definitely. So now we're going to discuss some challenges with PDFs. Tarveen, do you want to kick us off for this one?
Absolutely. Thank you so much. So we have tried to pull up the major challenges on this slide, and we'll be talking about what are the challenges, not only the challenges, but what is the associated solution, so that whenever anyone comes to you next time, you know how that needs to be fixed. We know that people really struggle and they say that I am unable to fix this. That's the challenge, but how to fix it is what we all should aim for. Now, the biggest challenge that you always come across is that PDFs are being rolled out like a scanned document in the market. Now, when it is a scanned document, the biggest challenge is you will not be able to structure it, tag it, and make it compliant. Now, that's not what our need is. We need to ensure that whatever we deliver is fully accessible. What is the solution? How can I fix a scanned document? Now, here comes the solution. That's the OCR technology. You might have heard, if anyone who is not aware, OCR is optical content recognition tools that are there in market. What they enable us, they help us extract the content from the scanned images so that we have this content in place and we can do proper tagging and structuring. There are various tools. A few of the tools that are widely used are Abby Fine Reader, Read Iris, and Acrobat Pro. These are the majorly used tool in the market, but you can for sure go for other tools, whatever works best for you based on the type of PDF or type of content you are catering to.
Yeah, we see these scanned images, and I see them frequently in large documents that were physically typed up back in the 1980s or early 90s, where people have one that I think about a lot is our homeowners association. The rules and regulations for that is actually a scanned PDF, and it's really hard for a lot of people to understand what's in there. So those are the types, we see those in a lot of what I would consider older documents, not stuff that has been created as much in an online environment.
Absolutely. The second challenge is unsupported feature. Now, what happens, you have seen that there are form interactive elements that are being used in the PDFs, but you will come across the situation where they don't work with consistency and accuracy. Now, what is the solution to it? We will recommend to use like a source that is InDesign. The preferred source for PDF is InDesign. So try to templatize those form and interactive elements so that they work in consistency and they have ease of use and same functionality across all the pages. So having a templatized approach in InDesign will help you solve this feature. The third problem statement is structuring data in the PDF. Now you know that PDF formats are not inherently structured. There is no built-in way. For example, we end up using a table and you curate it in a Word document. It is very easy to have it remediated. It itself become a table header, row, and all of that stuff. Whereas in PDF, we need to go back and do entire structure and tagging within the PDF, and it has its own complexities while doing that. So again, what is the solution? Solution is to have InDesign the root there in place and then do the development and have the table and structure. Then you need to do a very less work on the PDF because everything is being structured properly through InDesign.
And one thing we'll talk about as we go a little bit farther through is we recognize that it's impossible to have all source documents to be done in that accessible manner, but just, when you're thinking about where you are in your process and in your companies, think about what you might have sitting around in legacy documents versus what you might be building new, or different ways to create your content, and understanding that, as Tarveen was saying, formats, especially in tables, what can you do to think about making them better, but then understanding that it is possible to go back and fix those existing elements. It just takes a little bit more time.
Absolutely. Then the next one is the layering issue. We have seen people end up using OCGs. Now, what is OCGs? OCGs is Option Content Group. Now, this enables you to either switch on or switch off the visibility of the content by putting layer onto it. Now, we have seen that many people end up using the layering format, which is ideally not the right fit for screen reader users. We should always avoid using OCGs, and otherwise we will end up doing a lot of rework while remediating the PDFs. So layering should be avoided at first step. We shouldn't be using it unless and until it is like much needed for you and you don't want that information to be conveyed to people using AT tools and technologies. Next is...
Oh, I'm so sorry. I didn't mean to cut you off.
Next one is no reflow. Now, what happens is, as you know, that PDFs are designed to be fixed layout. There is no option to have it reflow. Solution to it is use flexible layout options within PDF that will actually allow you to zoom in and zoom out and ensure the content doesn't get pixelated and it visible properly to the low vision users or users you are using the Zoom text or other AT tools.
Yeah, that's what you just said was a really good point, that when the PDFs were originally created, we talked about them being a universal file format. So they were intentionally fixed so that they could open up and be read in different systems. And they still are intentionally fixed in many industries for a reason, but there are ways and tools, and we'll talk about that also, that you can work within those PDFs or use different apps to see them in a more reflowable manner, which also relies on them being tagged and structured properly. So it's not wrong that PDFs are not reflowable. And if that's your use case, that's okay. It's just something you need to consider when you're trying to figure out, is this the right way for me to use these files, is that there will be some users who will have barriers because of that fixed layout.
Absolutely. Then the last one is MathML. I have seen people really struggling to get how MathML needs to be fixed, how it will be announced properly using a screen reader. And I've seen people end up just artifacting it and not adding the required mathematical content. So my recommendation here is to involve a SME, get the alt text written so that it can be read properly by the screen reader, ensuring the math or a chemistry content is being conveyed the way equations are being written, and then adding it to alt text or the actual text and artifacting that image. That is how we should ensure the MathML is being conveyed. Now, looking at all the challenges and the solutions, it's very straightforward and it's visible that PDF remediation is not an easy job, but you can surely make it easy and smooth by ensuring that you understand the nuances, challenges, and you know what is the solution that you are building up before actually jumping onto the job. That will enable you deliver what is the need of the hour.
Definitely. Thank you so much for that, Tarveen. Erin, did you have anything else to add to that before we move on?
No, I just, agree with what Tarveen said about there is a lot of effort involved in the remediation, especially more complex documents, but really understanding what your goal is at the outset of doing that remediation will help to ensure that that final document meets your needs and your client's needs.
Absolutely.
Definitely. All right, Tarveen, can you talk to us a little bit about the end-to-end process for compliance with PDFs?
Absolutely. So as you all can see on the screen, we have laid out a process that we recommend, but it is not that it will work out for each and every type of PDF that you are catering to. Always try to understand the content type and complexity. So what we recommend is that first do the analysis. Now, what we do in analysis is we try to figure out what is the complexity, how PDFs are being built. Are they the image based, or do we need to do a OCR? If yes, which OCR tool? Is there a layering? If layering, what we need to do is what all we need to do in the analysis phase. So now once you are done with the analysis, you need to build up a plan. Now, what is the plan? Someone needs to go through the PDFs and understand how content pedagogy needs to be retained while performing remediation. What I have seen and observed, or even while accessing the random files on the internet, that people end up doing tagging, but they don't end up defining the relationship between the content. For example, you would have come across a PDF page where there is a bubble on the content and it is having some context in it. Now, what happens is that we need to have the relationship defined, that against this content, there is a bubble area and this is the text that is being conveyed through this. Or even as you see, there is a dictionary terminology, you end up seeing those terms at either end of the page, extreme left bottom, or at the top. Now, as soon as your definition comes in, your focus should move, and that content should be read after the paragraph or whatever way you want them to read. But I have seen people ending up just missing and ensuring the glossary pages at the end are being defined properly. So these are the nuances that you need to review before you actually start with the tagging and structuring. So your solution should be ready. Your table structuring, how table needs to be read, should be properly drafted so that your solution is consistent across. Then
and these steps Tarveen, what I was just going to say were these 2 steps in the analysis and plan system, typically take a little bit of time. Not a ton of time, but we recommend that you take the time in your schedules, in your timelines, to make sure that you have thought about these processes in your batching, so that when you move forward into the work that actually happens to remediate, it is already figured out, and then you just have to apply. So it's still that mentality of the shift left, where you're taking the consideration of how to fix these documents before you just run into them and get them fixed. And it does help as you're moving forward, because again, you are giving yourself that ability to take into those user experiences into consideration and plan for that work, and then it will go in a smoother fashion.
Absolutely. Then moving on to tagging and structuring, that's the core part where the major job is being done. So you apply the tags, include all text, do the color fixing, bookmark document properties, and then also ensure the interactive content is being placed and is fully accessible. We have added the OCR as optional. In case you have a scanned PDF, then only you need to perform this job. Otherwise, we are good. We just need to follow the above mentioned steps. Anyways, we'll be talking about all of these in detail in the upcoming slide. The next is accessibility test through automation. We have various tools and we'll be talking about them. The preferred for audit is accessibility checker via Acrobat Pro DC and Pack Report. That's what we usually use to say that yes, this is fully remediated and it is compliant. But still, what I have seen, people end up messing up with the data that they share for the Pack Report. Just try rerunning the report to be double sure that yes, things are being delivered right. Last one is the review, where we actually perform the audit along with experts with disabilities, involving native testers, performing testing using 80 tools, and also publishing the final compliance report that all the PDF files that we have remediated are compliant as per the required standard.
Right. Thank you so much for that. Tarveen, can you talk to us a little bit about some automation tools that can be used for remediation?
Absolutely. There are many tools in the market that I've already shared. I have tried to pull up the ones that are widely used, and it has mix of free and paid tool. So I'll be talking about first the QA tools that we prefer. So Acrobat Pro is the audit as well as remediation tool. So we end up using this for both, and it also help you edit the PDF, also enable you to create the form fields and everything with a proper structure, and also provide you with the OCR technology inbuilt. Now this is a paid tool. The second one is Common Look. Now this has been branded as Alien, as you all would be knowing, and they provide the license-based service, and they have various different tools within their entire kitty, whether it's for audit or for remediation or for consulting. They have their own pool of tools as an organization. Then we have InfiReader and PDF Checker. They both help you remediate, and also the Nitro PDF and Access PDF. Access PDF is the best tool to be used when we actually talk about complexities of OCR. This is what I have been using personally, and I have seen a great outcome of the OCR, but it depends on your needs, your complexity, your type of product, that which tool you want to opt for.
And the one thing that I know you touched on, but it's really important that if all you are able to do is utilize the Adobe suite, there is a great accessibility checker and reporting tool that does come within there. So again, these are other tools that we specifically use here at Magic, and they're just a few of the tools that are out there. So don't be beholden to any of these, but know that there are a lot of different tools that not only do we utilize, but that are available on the market.
Absolutely.
All right. Thank you so much for that, Tarveen. Erin, can you talk to us a little bit about manual tools within remediation?
Manual tools are humans, right? So it's really important to understand that not everything can be done through automation. So when we're talking about any sort of accessibility testing, auditing, and looking through and fixing items, we love our automated tools and we should utilize them, but they're not perfect. And there's always going to be a human element that is required and involved. So, it's really important to understand that there are things that you're going to have to do as you're doing these remediation pieces. It's really important, as Tarveen touched on, to ensure that you're doing testing, making sure that you're running it through a screen reader, making sure that you as the human understand what your pedagogical intent is so that you have your content interpretation, right? So the top piece of this diagram that we have here, your automation is not going to be putting in that logical relationship between your table headers and rows or your pedagogy as we talked about. So that is a very important piece, is to understand what the content is going to be. Again, the second bottom left piece of this diagram here is user testing, making sure that your users are working through the different screen readers to make sure they can read it. JAWS, NVDA, VoiceOver, Chromebox, they all have slight nuances in them. So consider what your users might be using and run your PDFs through those different testers just to understand how it's going to work and make sure that they are functioning in the way that works for you. The structure and tagging, which is the bottom right portion of this diagram, I think we have a question in the Q&A, but it's really important to understand that no matter how great your source document is, there will always be a requirement when you're in Adobe when you're in your PDF for some manual review. And we'll touch on this a little bit further, but it's, you need to make sure that your title of your document is there, your reading order, that content interpretation, and your color contrast. Those are 3 pieces that you always have to do in your PDF, no matter what. You have to check those. That's a requirement to get that little passing report. The last piece on that manual structure and tagging is also making sure that your languages are set correctly, your languages of parts. So if you're thinking about an English PDF, but you have a French term or a Spanish term that you're using in there, you're going to want to make sure that you have those languages, those terms tagged, so the screen reader is reading it in the appropriate language. So those are some of the things to consider when you're looking at PDF remediation, and understanding that you will have a human need to intervene no matter what you're doing.
All right. Thank you so much for that, Erin. And now we have a sample report on the screen. Tarveen, can you run us through this sample report a little bit and kind of make English out of it for us?
Absolutely. So on the left side, you will see the report from Accessibility Checker. This is a HTML report. Otherwise, you end up seeing the same report in a shorter format within the Acrobat Pro. Now, it has the rule name like what needs to be tested and what is the status. For example, you see that accessibility image only PDF, it is passed, the content is being properly structured, it is being tagged. Now, what about logical reading order? It will recommend that you need to test it manually. That's the best thing that reminds you that few of the checkpoints like reading order, color contrast, and few other needs to be reviewed and delivered through a manual approach before you say that I am done with my job. Then on the right side comes the pack report that we usually end up using. What we do is, and what we recommend, always ensure double check through pack and accessibility checker to ensure we are fully compliant. So this helps you do a double check of yes, everything is being done Few of the folks end up relying only on PAC, and few of the people end up relying on Acrobat Pro. So it's better to have both in your test strategy or remediation approach.
All right. Thank you so much. And can you talk to us a little bit about some key considerations to ensure better PDFs?
Sure. So firstly, before we start, as you see at the top, PDF UA standard is what we covered, and it is actually subset of WCAG 2.1 guidelines. So we end up referring to UA guidelines, Universal Accessibility Guidelines for PDF. And these are all the tags and information that is being added as those guidelines, and they are more detailed one. So we'll start one by one what needs to be done step by step to have a complete accessible document. So first one is ensure your document properties are being set and your metadata is being defined properly. Then have the tagging and structure in place. Now, what is tagging and structure? Few people end up using the built-in feature of auto tag. Now what happens is that if you have a layering issue or your content is not being properly laid out within the PDF, this feature will not work. And auto tagging actually enables you to only reach at, I think, 30% of the compliance when we talk about tagging. We need to manually review and do the structuring and tagging, which heading structure, how list is to be defined, how table relationship is to be defined. That's what we have referred to in our step 2, that is plan and have your content pedagogy being built up properly, and that's what we need to implement in tagging and structure phase. Then we have a very important checkpoint that we have seen many people missing it out, enabling the language of the PDF and also ensuring language of part for a different language that is being used within the PDF content. Then tagging your links properly, making them hyperlink, easy to access, adding alt text, ensure alt text is being written and reviewed by SMEs. We can rely on AI tools. We know there are a lot of AI tools in the market, but end of day, the contextual correctness needs to play a very vital role. Then we have color contrast. So images, content, everything needs to be reviewed. As Acrobat also states that that's a manual job to be done. So please do it with the color contrast analyzer and end up ensuring that all the color contrast issues are being fixed. List and tables, again, they play a very vital role, and we have seen no tool, nothing can help you have a fully accessible list and table as a final outcome. So a lot of manual intervention is needed because you need to understand the content pedagogy for this. And bookmarks, that plays a very vital role for keyboard navigation. So ensure your bookmarks are being done properly. People end up remediating but end up missing on the bookmarks. Form fields and interactive content, as we suggested, that try using them as a templatized approach through InDesign. That will enable you save a lot of effort and rework while doing it within the PDF. Keyboard navigation, this plays a very vital role. Ensure your content is keyboard accessible as well. Document validator, we have talked about it. 2 validators we have been recommending, Acrobat Pro and Pack Report. Ensure your files are being done, reviewed, and delivered through these. So these are
go ahead, Tarveen.
So these are the key parameters or key pointers or checklists that one should follow once they start remediating the product or a page.
And a couple of things that I wanted to add on is you'll notice that many of these items are the same items that we talk about when we're talking about our accessibility of our web pages or of our Word documents, hyperlinks, making sure that they make sense. Instead of a click here, click here, click here, you want to enable your screen reader user to be able to understand where is that link going to take them. Your alt text, as Tarveen touched on, is always very important. And sometimes in your PDFs, you will have decorative images. So knowing, again, going back to your pedagogical intent, knowing what your goals are and ensuring that things are authored in a way that people can understand. So if they're going through the file, they're not missing that important information. And I know that might be a review, but it's really important to know that that is part of the universal design of accessibility, is making sure that you can work through all of those pieces as you go.
All right. Thank you so much for that, Erin. And next, we're going to talk about PDFs in the modern world with AI. Erin, do you want to kick us off for this one?
Sure. So as we talked about at the beginning, PDFs started out in a professional setting and they have grown in use across the board. And I know we have a lot of people from universities and from higher education institutions and schools and other institutes here. In education, PDFs are used everywhere, right? We know especially, they're great for worksheets, but they aren't necessarily great as a format. So one thing to consider is, what is the best use case for your audience, and does that work? If it is the PDF, great. We've had these conversations on how to think about using it. If there's a different way, such as putting the information into an EPUB, that's also an option. Or if it's something that can be an HTML-based file format that is inherently more accessible as you go, again, something to think about as you're trying to figure out, what do I do with all of my PDFs? Can I start building them in a different way? Another thing that is available now for PDFs is Adobe has released what they've called Liquid Mode. And I'm not a professional on Adobe Liquid Mode, but I do know how it works, in that you open up the app, whether it's an iPhone or Android, and then there is a cute little raindrop icon that you can click on, and it will take a PDF and make it look very similar to an EPUB. It becomes reflowable, it retains that header structure, it enables you to zoom in and zoom out. It comes in handy if you're at a restaurant and you're scanning those QR codes that we've all seen since COVID, and then typically those open you up into a PDF that is super tiny and you're trying to scroll and figure out, what do I want to eat? If you open that same file through the Adobe app and then click Liquid Mode, if it's structured in a way that will work well, you can then, dive through it and see what's on the menu. So just things to think about, that there are innovations happening, understanding that PDF, that file format, is not going to go away. It is here to stay. There are ways to work with it, and that it's really important to understand how you want to utilize it, understand that it is possible to make it accessible. It may take time, but it is possible. And then think about, as you're going forward, what else is out there that you might find to be a better format for your users. And it could be dependent on the industry that you're in, or the users that you have, or the devices that people have, but also understanding that in the industry, in the tech industry, people are constantly looking for ways to improve. And that includes thinking of how to be accessible as they're moving forward in their different ways to make new apps and new ideas. Tarveen, do you have anything you want to add on that?
No, I think we have really covered it from all the standpoint, and we know PDFs are not going anywhere. We have billions of PDFs in the market and they will remain as is. It's just that we all need to ensure that we are building up an accessible product right from the scratch, because we continue to see they are still in production. They are not going anywhere. So, and the existing ones, we need to find out what we need to do. But yes, looking at the AI solutions like ChatGPT and others, I personally feel that something will be coming up soon for PDF to help us and ease out the job for sure.
All right. Thank you so much for that, ladies. I think that it is time for us to start our QA portion. So if there are any questions that you have, you can feel free to drop them in the Q&A box and we can address them. I think we already have a few. So Laura asked, I think we discussed this a little bit, but I think we can go into greater detail for her. Can we please discuss tagging? When I run accessibility checks for PDFs in Adobe Acrobat, I usually get tagging errors. How great a barrier does lack of tagging pose? Is running auto tagging sufficient for remediation? And she said, thank you.
Absolutely. As I have already covered, that auto tagging helps to reach at like 30-40% of the level. It will not understand the content pedagogy. It will not understand what needs to be the heading hierarchy and structure. So for that, we need to go and review the content and have the proper structure and tagging in place. And there's a feature within Acrobat that you end up using to perform the tagging, right tagging at right content and right place.
All right. Thank you so much, Tarveen. Erin, did you have anything you want to add to that?
Nope. Tarveen nailed that one on the head.
And I apologize if I butcher the pronunciation of this name, but Miyuki asked, is a 100% compliant PDF possible in terms of accessibility, or is there a good enough percentage?
So it depends on what your goal is. And as we talked about earlier, when you're aligning to PDF UA standards, yes, you absolutely can make a 100% compliant PDF. If your goal is to have a 100% compliant PDF that you can open on a web page and it's totally reflowable and it does all of the things, then probably not. So when you're considering utilizing a PDF, again, what is your use case? But yes, you can make a fully compliant PDF, and that is a possibility.
All right. Thank you so much. And our next question is from Brennan Young. Are there any command line tools or open source code libraries that can reliably manipulate PDF accessibility features like semantic tagging and read order?
I have never explored any command line tools or any open source library, because we know that we need to ensure the content is not being actually misused. So we don't upload or even recommend using that. It's always better to have a tool in place, have a licensed tool, and do the editing of your content, because we have seen PDFs are the most secure way of sharing the data. So we need to ensure authenticity. So I have never come across any command line tool for remediation.
All right. Thank you, Tarveen. Brennan also asked, please explain the relationship between read order and tag order. Are they equally important for accessibility? How and why do they come out of sync? And how can this be avoided?
Sure. So yes, reading order and tag order, actually, they need to be in sync, and they usually come in sync because that's how the tagging screen reader picks up through the tags. So you should always start from top of the page and do the tagging in the proper format, like top to bottom, left to right. That's how it should be done. And that's how a normal screen reader user will traverse through. And this will be automatically get in sync if you follow this step. Otherwise, while doing the remediation, you will also get confused that which layer, which position, what tag I'm trying to fix on which page.
All right, thank you. And Tiffany asked, does liquid mode keep the page number? Because page number is a big issue with EPUB, and this is becoming a requirement with WCAG 3.0, I believe. I think she may have meant 2.2.
Yeah, so liquid mode, I will have to investigate more to see if it's kept the page number. What I've seen, I haven't been paying attention to the page number. I do recognize that is a large consideration, especially in the education industry, because if you're being asked to read specific pages or working in class, I don't know the answer, but I can do some recon and find out. And then as far as requirements for page numbers, and I do know it's an issue in EPUBs also, haven't gotten to WCAG 3.0 yet. We're still waiting for 2.2, which is hopefully coming out soon. But we will stay on top of this, and Tiffany, I will find out.
I know a little bit, Erin, just wanted to add, it may or may not be visible. It is the way you try to build up your EPUB. So that's not a mandatory thing to have.
For the page number for EPUB specifically?
Yes.
Yeah.
All righty. And Brennan submitted another question. He said, where can I find documentation for all of the weird fields in the tag editor Acrobat Pro? There are a lot of strange dialog boxes and fields which are not mentioned in the Adobe docs. How do I understand these?
So, Brennan, if you come across any, you can talk to me personally on a LinkedIn channel. I'll be happy to help you on that. But trust me that all the dialogues that whatever appears, and it might be due to the incorrect tagging or structuring you have done, or the layering or the OCR or any other issue that you would have come across. But there is always a fix for the dialog pop-up that I have come across.
Alrighty. And Rick asked, which Adobe apps have liquid mode? For example, InDesign and Acrobat Standard, Acrobat Pro. Thanks.
So I have seen it in the just an Acrobat Reader. I don't know if it's in Pro. I would assume it is. I don't have that on my phone, so I can't answer that. I've seen it just in the Reader app.
It's actually what I have seen. It's in the InDesign only, Erin, and but again, which allows you to create a responsive design that automatically adjusts the size of the screen or the window.
Yeah, I wouldn't be surprised if it's in their whole suite, to be honest, but personally,
Right.
I've used it just in the Reader app.
Alrighty. And Karen asked, what is the relationship between reading order and tagging?
I think we have already covered in another question. We need to have like structured tagging to have right reading order in place. That's how we should actually read it.
Okay. And Megan asked, what is the best way to read PDF UA standards? Do you recommend that all accessibility professionals purchase it from the internal organization for standardization, ISO?
Not sure the right answer to that. I'm not sure, Megan, what you're asking there. The best way to read the standards are the standards, but if you're trying to understand which are the best standards to align to, maybe we can follow up with you separately on that, because I'm not sure that I understand your question.
Alrighty. I will note down her name so that we can talk to her a little bit later.
Perfect, thanks.
Jeremy Schmidt asked, what's best to testing? Chrome, Acrobat, etc.
We should test whatever is the maximum usage based. We end up testing on Chrome, we end up testing on Safari, we end up testing on Acrobat. So you need to analyze how you are actually sharing the information with your users. If it's through web-based product, they will open up in a browser mode, and then you would surely need to cover the Chrome or Safari or whatever other browser you are catering to.
And likewise, if you're just delivering it as a file format, then we would want to make sure it's tested just in Acrobat.
Megan asked, generally we try to avoid using images of text for math content. You've recommended using an image with alt text for math. Are PDFs incapable of rendering proper math ML?
It's not so much that the PDFs are incapable of rendering the proper math ML. It's also that the screen readers struggle with the math ML, so it's a little bit of both. Charveen, I know you were taking a minute to read that question as well.
So sorry.
No, don't apologize. It'll depend on the complexity and what your math level is as well. Charveen, you want to add to that?
Yes, exact math ML implementation, MagicA11y can't be implemented in PDF. So that's the reason we recommended adding a alt text properly written by SMEs.
Alrighty. Tiffany submitted another question. She said, is there a tool that can be embedded into a pipeline to run accessibility check to all the books that we have? FYI, we have more than 1 million books on our platform.
Yes, there are several tools that can be integrated into pipeline to automate accessibility check for large book, like PAVE, that is PDF Accessibility Validation Engine. And even you can do a customization and build up your own tool where you can have Acrobat Pro help you with this validation. Few tweaks and few automation needs to be added to your pipeline.
Alrighty, thank you. John asked, screen readers follow tag order, not reading order, correct? They often differ.
Yes, that's right. But screen reader user follow this, but normal keyboard navigation user might end up following the tag order. So that's the reason we always recommend both of them should be in sync to how the content is being placed on the page.
Yeah, I think that's a really good distinction, that it is important for the screen reader users to be able to do that, but we're also taking into consideration those who also just use a keyboard, don't necessarily rely on a screen reader. So as with everything in accessibility, it's not just a once and done, and it depends, right?
Absolutely.
All right, and someone anonymous asked, when I do auto tags for accessibility, it gives off so many random tags. Is it better to do it manually rather than trying to start with auto tag in Adobe Pro, then go back to scan for tags?
Absolutely. My recommendation, do your own tagging, because I have seen fewer times the document has already few tagging and structure in place. The reason could be the InDesign. But when you try to do auto tagging, it screws up everything. So better to understand first how tags are being done, and if they are not being done, do the auto tagging. Then you'll be not spending additional time. It just will help you achieve at a 10%. But if there is already a structure in place, just try to analyze and then do the manual review.
Alrighty. And someone else anonymous asked, when using scanned pages, sometimes the background image contains characters from the text. If you delete these, that text goes away. What is the best way to include all of the text but still not have an image show up? Sometimes the background image needs to be removed for readability and the remaining text, but it's really frustrating when those letters disappear as well.
Yes, that's right. That's where OCR actually is a problem statement, but a solution to this biggest problem statement of scanned document. Now, manual intervention plays a very vital role while solving this, because we have seen introduction of junk characters, mathematical content being messed up while doing the OCR. So you need to ensure that the manual intervention is being done, the content is being mapped, and then you start with the tagging and structuring.
Alrighty. Colin asked, do you have any tips on how to fake a caption or title for a table?
We will surely not recommend that, to fake a title or a caption. It's always best to add a title, and you will come across that as a violation when you will run the tool.
Alrighty. And Joseph asked, are there any market accepted validators other than PAC for Acrobat? Do you have any experience with Vera PDF? We use UA validation in our software. Sorry, butchered that one.
Yeah, what we were sharing were some of the most widely used ones, but as we talked about, there are other validators out there. I haven't used Vera PDF, but I've heard of it. Parveen, I don't know if you've experienced with it, but I think what you had in there was making sure you have the UA validation. So again, making sure that you are confirming your file against those UA standards, whether it's through the PAC tool or through another tool that's going to give you the information you seek.
Absolutely. And there was one last question that I responded earlier. Anjali, I want to take it up. I responded to a few of the queries through messages. Everyone was asking, what is the difference, what we do in InDesign compared to what we do in PDF? And is it like InDesign document InDesign, once created, have a fully accessible PDF. So there are different steps that we end up following to have a fully accessible PDF. Now, why InDesign? InDesign helps you save effort, have a templatized approach, and have a consistent outcome. You end up spending less effort compared to starting everything from scratch within the PDF. Now, what we do in InDesign, we do the validation of the package, mapping the paragraph styles, character styles, artifact the text and the objects. You end up checking and fixing the bookmarks, table of content, hyperlinks, and cross references. You also end up defining the metadata. You end up defining the content order in the article panel, so that once it is converted, if you try to run an auto tag, it will enable you reach at a very good level if content order are being done properly in the InDesign. Now, when the outcome is generated in a PDF, what additional do? We end up updating document properties, title, author, subject, and keyword that comes under the properties section. You do the tagging and structuring for the elements that can't be done in the InDesign. Then if reading order is screwed up, you end up fixing the reading order. You end up grouping the objects. Might be the lines within a paragraph are appearing in a single P tag, but you need to combine them and have them in one P tag. Multi-line paragraph to single line paragraph is what we do here. And then the mathematical content, actual text needs to be added, and then running the full accessibility check is the final step that we do in the PDF. So there is a difference in the features that are being available in InDesign and PDF, but you end up saving effort if you start from InDesign and then deliver the final PDF.
So I know we are almost at time. We have a couple more questions in the queue. So we'll read through as many of those as we can get to. And again, if we can't answer your question here, we'll follow up with you directly. So Colin, following up on a previous question, how do you directly associate a title or caption to a table? Because Adobe doesn't have that capability. However, when a screen reader user encounters a table, it'd be nice to have a related title associated to it the way we do in HTML. So the question is that direct association when we're doing the remediation instead of a build from scratch.
Yes, and we can actually add the content on the top of the table to have it same for people with disability or people without disability.
And Colin, if that did not answer exactly what you're looking for, feel free to reach out to us at accessibility@magicedtech.com and we can follow up directly with you. Dorothy asked, do you have a list of how to do documents that you can share for folks who are newer to making PDFs accessible? So we do have resources, and again, if you want to reach out to us, or Dorothy will probably reach out directly to you, we would be happy to talk through the documentation we have and the supports that we can provide to you and to your teams.
Alrighty.
Jeremy asked, for a complex pie chart, would it be acceptable to place a table with the same text info as the chart behind the chart in the background, color hidden as all text for the purpose of accessibility? Again, we don't recommend that. What we can recommend is either adding the information in the actual text or adding a hyperlink just below the PDF that will redirect to a HTML page that is fully accessible. But hiding anything might result into more complexities, and if you try to re-remediate and do fixing again, it will be a lot of rework for you if your input is InDesign and all of this is being done at the PDF level.
Alrighty, and unfortunately, I think that is all we have time for today. But Thank you so much for joining us for this session of Magically Live. This session and all other sessions can be found on our YouTube channel. It'll probably just take us about a week for us to upload it, but the session will also be emailed to all of you. So keep an eye out in your mailbox for that. And our next session as of right now is scheduled for Tuesday, February 28th, and the subject is still yet to come. But thank you so much for joining us for this Magically Live. It was so good to talk to you today.
Thank you, everyone. We really appreciate you being here.
Thank you. Bye all.
Bye, everyone.